In a quiet observatory located in the deserts of New Mexico, Alex Carter sat hunched over his computer screen. The room was dimly lit, with only the faint glow of monitors and blinking lights from nearby equipment breaking the darkness. Outside, the vast expanse of the night sky stretched endlessly above him, dotted with countless stars. For years, Alex had dedicated his life to studying those distant points of light, searching for answers to questions that most people never even thought to ask. But tonight, something unusual caught his attention. On his screen, a series of strange signals flickered across the display. At first glance, they looked like random bursts of noise, but as Alex zoomed in and analyzed the data, he realized there was a pattern, something deliberate and organized. It wasn't natural. His heart raced as he double-checked his work, running the numbers through various algorithms to confirm what he was seeing. These weren't just cosmic anomalies. They were messages. Someone, or something, was trying to communicate. Alex called out to his colleague, Maria Lopes, who was working in the adjacent lab. "Maria, you need to see this," he said, his voice tinged with excitement and disbelief. She hurried over, her dark hair tied back in a loose ponytail, and leaned in to examine the data. After a moment of silence, she let out a low whistle. "This is incredible," she murmured. "But where is it coming from?" Together, they traced the source of the signals. Using advanced software, they pinpointed its origin deep in space, a region far beyond anything humanity had ever explored. As they dug deeper, fragments of the message began to take shape. Coordinates appeared on their screens, along with symbols that neither of them could fully decipher. Whatever it was, it felt important, urgent even. Alex's mind raced with possibilities. Could this be evidence of intelligent extraterrestrial life, or was it some kind of warning? Before they could make sense of it all, news broke around the world. Reports poured in of massive objects entering Earth's orbit. People looked up at the skies in awe and fear as enormous ships blocked out the sun over major cities. The sheer size of these vessels made them impossible to ignore. They hovered silently, casting long shadows across the ground below. Governments scrambled to respond, issuing statements urging calm while secretly preparing for the worst. Back at the observatory, Alex and Maria watched the unfolding events with growing dread. The pieces started falling into place. The signals, the coordinates, the arrival of these mysterious ships. It wasn't hard to connect the dots. Whatever sent those messages wasn't here to chat. That suspicion was confirmed when a broadcast echoed across every television, radio, and internet channel worldwide. A towering alien figure appeared on screens, its sleek, metallic body gleaming under harsh lights. Its voice boomed, cold and authoritative. "We are the Krillians," it declared. "Your planet has been deemed suitable for assimilation. You will surrender unconditionally, or we will eliminate your species entirely." The ultimatum sent shockwaves through humanity. Some nations immediately considered capitulating, hoping to avoid bloodshed. Others vowed to resist, no matter the cost. Chaos erupted in streets and government chambers alike. Amid the turmoil, Alex and Maria found themselves summoned to Washington, D.C. by General Sam Brooks, a grizzled military leader tasked with forming a defense strategy. He wasted no time getting to the point. "We don't know much about these invaders," he admitted, pacing the room. "But if anyone can figure out how to fight them, it's you two." Alex nodded solemnly, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. This wasn't just about science anymore. It was about survival. As they left the meeting, Maria turned to Alex. "Do you think we stand a chance?" she asked softly. Alex hesitated before answering. "I don't know," he admitted, "but I do know one thing. Humans have always found ways to adapt, to overcome. Maybe that's our best weapon." Though doubt lingered in both their minds, they resolved to do everything in their power to protect their home. Little did they know, the real battle was only beginning. The world held its breath as the Krillian ships loomed above Earth, their massive forms casting eerie shadows over cities and towns. People gathered in streets and parks, staring up at the sky with a mix of wonder and terror. The invaders' ultimatum had been clear: surrender or face annihilation. Yet, despite the overwhelming power displayed by the Krillians, humanity refused to give up without a fight. In Washington, D.C., President Laura Hayes stood before cameras, her expression calm but resolute as she addressed billions of people around the globe. "My fellow citizens," she began, her voice steady and firm. "We have faced challenges before: wars, disasters, and hardships that tested our strength and unity. Today, we face a new kind of threat, one unlike anything we've encountered. But I believe in us. I believe in the resilience, creativity, and courage of the human spirit. We will not bow to fear. Together, we will stand against this enemy and protect our home." Her words sparked hope in many hearts, but behind closed doors, leaders debated fiercely about how to respond. Some argued for immediate negotiations, hoping to avoid bloodshed. Others pushed for bold action, believing that showing weakness would only embolden the Krillians further. Amid the chaos, Alex Carter and Maria Lopes worked tirelessly to decode more of the alien signals, searching for any clue that might give humanity an edge. Their efforts caught the attention of General Sam Brooks, who wasted no time pulling them into his rapidly forming defense initiative. General Brooks was a no-nonsense man in his late 50s, with sharp eyes and a commanding presence. He had spent decades preparing for war, but nothing could have prepared him for this. "We're dealing with an enemy that's centuries ahead of us," he told Alex and Maria during one of their first meetings. "They're faster, stronger, and smarter than anything we've ever seen. But they're not invincible. Every system has a flaw. It's our job to find it." Alex nodded thoughtfully. Over the past few days, he and Maria had pieced together fragments of information about the Krillians. Through intercepted communications and careful analysis, they learned that the aliens were biomechanical beings, a fusion of organic tissue and advanced technology. This hybrid nature gave them incredible abilities, such as enhanced strength, lightning-fast reflexes, and the ability to heal from injuries almost instantly. However, Alex noticed something intriguing. The Krillians relied heavily on centralized command nodes within each of their ships. If these nodes could be targeted and destroyed, it might disrupt their operations significantly. Maria agreed, adding another layer to their strategy. "Their tech is impressive, but it's also rigid," she explained. "They follow strict protocols and predictable patterns. Humans, on the other hand, are adaptable. We can use unconventional tactics, hit-and-run attacks, sabotage, guerrilla warfare, to keep them off balance." As plans took shape, the resistance movement gained momentum. Volunteers poured in from all walks of life, young and old, rich and poor, civilians, and soldiers alike. Among them was Jake Miller, a former Marine who had served multiple tours overseas. Now in his early 30s, Jake carried the scars of battle both physically and emotionally. When the call went out for experienced fighters, he didn't hesitate to join. His wife, Emily Dawson, signed up too, though her role was far different. A robotics engineer by trade, she brought invaluable expertise to retrofit outdated military equipment with cutting-edge modifications. Jake quickly became a key figure in training recruits. Using makeshift facilities hidden underground, he drilled volunteers in combat techniques tailored to take down the Krillians. "These things aren't human," he reminded his trainees. "You can't fight them like you would another person. Aim for weak points, the joints, the eyes, anywhere their armor might be thinner." Meanwhile, Emily worked alongside Maria to develop weapons capable of penetrating Krillian defenses. One promising invention was an experimental EMP device designed to disable their advanced systems temporarily. The underground bunker buzzed with activity as teams of scientists, engineers, and soldiers worked around the clock. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead, casting a pale glow over rows of tables cluttered with blueprints, tools, and half-finished prototypes. In one corner, Alex Carter leaned over a laptop, his brow furrowed in concentration. Beside him, Maria Lopez scribbled notes on a clipboard, her handwriting quick but neat. Across the room, Jake Miller demonstrated combat maneuvers to a group of recruits, his voice firm and steady. Emily Dawson sat at a workbench nearby, tinkering with wires and circuits as she fine-tuned an EMP device. Despite the chaos, there was a sense of purpose in the air. Everyone knew what was at stake. The Krillians had already begun testing Earth's defenses, sending small scout ships to probe for weaknesses. These encounters were brief but devastating, leaving destruction in their wake. Each attack brought grim reminders of the enemy's power and humanity's vulnerability. Yet, with every skirmish, Alex and Maria gathered more data, piecing together a clearer picture of how the Krillians operated. Through intercepted communications and careful observation, they learned that the Krillians moved in tight formations, relying on precise coordination. Their biomechanical bodies made them nearly unstoppable in direct combat, capable of shrugging off bullets and healing rapidly from injuries. But Alex noticed something crucial. The aliens depended heavily on centralized command nodes within each ship. If these nodes could be disabled, it would sever their connection to the rest of the fleet, causing confusion and disarray. Maria took this insight further. Their systems are advanced, but they're not infallible. She explained during a strategy meeting. If we can hit them hard enough in key areas, we might create openings for larger attacks. She pointed to a map projected on the wall, highlighting potential targets, weak points in the Krillian ship's armor, communication relays, and landing zones where scouts often appeared. Her plan emphasized speed and unpredictability, using Earth's varied terrain to ambush the invaders rather than engaging them head-on. Jake listened intently, nodding along. As a former Marine, he understood the value of adaptability in battle. They're big and strong, but they're slow to react when things don't go according to plan, he said. We can use that against them. Hit fast, hit hard, then disappear before they know what hit them. Emily chimed in, holding up a prototype EMP device. This should help even the odds, she said with a confident smile. It won't take them out permanently, but it'll fry their systems long enough for us to strike. The team agreed to incorporate the weapon into their tactics, pairing it with traditional firearms and explosives for maximum impact. As preparations continued, tensions rose among the resistance members. Supplies were running low, and fatigue began to show on everyone's faces. Recruits trained tirelessly, pushing themselves to their limits under Jake's watchful eye. Some struggled to keep up, their fear outweighing their determination. One young volunteer, barely out of high school, broke down during a drill, sobbing that he wasn't cut out for this kind of fight. Jake knelt beside him, placing a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "None of us are ready for this," he admitted quietly. "But sometimes you just have to do what needs to be done." Above ground, the world felt eerily quiet. Cities once bustling with life now stood empty, their streets deserted as people sought shelter underground. News reports painted a bleak picture: food shortages, power outages, and widespread panic. Yet, amidst the despair, stories of courage emerged. Ordinary citizens banded together to protect their neighborhoods, sharing resources and standing guard against looters. Even children pitched in, collecting scrap metal and spare parts to support the resistance effort. Back in the bunker, Alex stared at the latest batch of data, his mind racing. He couldn't shake the feeling that time was running out. The Krillians weren't simply probing Earth, they were preparing for something bigger. Every day they delayed meant another chance for the invaders to strengthen their position. "We need to act soon," he told Maria later that evening, "before they decide to wipe us out completely." Maria nodded, her expression grim. "I know, but rushing in blind won't help anyone. We need to be smart about this." Together, they reviewed their plans one last time, double-checking every detail. Outside, The hum of machinery and distant voices filled the air, a reminder that humanity was still fighting, still hoping. Despite the odds, they refused to give up. And deep down, Alex believed that sheer determination might just be their greatest weapon yet. The resistance had been planning for weeks, and now the time had come to put their strategies to the test. The first mission was set, a daring nighttime raid on a Krillian scout ship that had landed in a remote area of Siberia. Intelligence suggested the vessel was lightly guarded, making it an ideal target for a trial run. If successful, the operation would not only deal a blow to the invaders, but also provide valuable data about their technology and weaknesses. Jake Miller stood at the head of the briefing room, his face illuminated by the glow of a map projected onto the wall. Around him, a group of volunteers listened intently, their expressions a mix of determination and nervousness. "This is it," Jake said, his voice low but firm. "Our first real shot at hitting back. We've trained for this, and we know what we're up against. Stick to the plan, stay sharp, and watch each other's backs." He outlined the mission. 2 teams would approach the site from different directions. One team, led by Emily Dawson, would create a diversion using EMP devices to disable the scout ship's outer defenses. Meanwhile, Jake's team would infiltrate the craft, locate its command node, and plant explosives to destroy it. Timing was critical. If either team fell behind schedule, the entire operation could fail. As the volunteers suited up, Alex Carter and Maria Lopes monitored the situation from a makeshift command center miles away. Their screens displayed live feeds from drones scouting the area, along with thermal imaging showing the positions of Krillian guards. "They're spread thin," Maria observed, pointing to clusters of heat signatures near the ship. "Looks like they're expecting trouble, but not from us." The strike force moved out under cover of darkness, their movements silent and deliberate. Snow crunched softly beneath their boots as they navigated the frozen landscape. Emily's team reached their position first, setting up EMP charges around the perimeter. At exactly midnight, they activated the devices. A series of bright flashes lit up the night as electromagnetic pulses surged through the air, temporarily disabling the Krillian sensors and weapon systems. Alarms blared inside the ship, and guards scrambled to respond. Taking advantage of the chaos, Jake's team slipped past the distracted sentries and entered the scout ship through a maintenance hatch. Inside, the air was cold and metallic, filled with the hum of alien machinery. The walls glowed faintly with pulsating lights, casting eerie shadows on the floor. Jake signaled for his team to split up, searching for the command node while keeping an eye out for patrols. It didn't take long to find their target, a large spherical structure embedded in the heart of the ship. Wires and conduits snaked outward from it, connecting to every part of the vessel. "This is it," Jake whispered, motioning for one of his teammates to plant the explosives. As they worked, the sound of heavy footsteps echoed down the corridor. The Krillians had recovered faster than expected. "Move," Jake shouted, grabbing the detonator just as the aliens rounded the corner. Blasts of energy tore through the air as the humans fired back, retreating toward the exit. The narrow corridors amplified the noise, making it hard to think clearly. Jake's heart pounded in his chest as he urged his team forward, knowing they were running out of time. They burst into the freezing night air just as Emily's team finished laying down covering fire. "Detonate," she yelled over the comlink. Jake pressed the button without hesitation. A deafening explosion rocked the area, sending shards of metal and debris flying in all directions. The scout ship shuddered violently before collapsing in on itself, its glowing lights flickering out one by one. Cheers erupted among the strike force as they regrouped, but the victory was bittersweet. Several members of the team had been injured during the escape, and 2 hadn't made it back at all. Among them was Emily Dawson, who had stayed behind to ensure the diversion succeeded, sacrificing herself to give the others a chance. Her loss hit Jake especially hard, leaving him shaken and angry. Back at the bunker, Alex and Maria reviewed footage from the mission. their faces somber. "We did it," Maria said quietly, though her tone lacked enthusiasm. "But at what cost?" Alex nodded, staring at the screen. For every step forward, it seemed, there was a price to pay. Still, the raid proved humanity could fight back and win. It was a small spark of hope in an otherwise dark war. But as Jake stared at the horizon, clutching the detonator in his hand, he knew the hardest battles were yet to come. The aftermath of the Siberian raid rippled through the resistance like a storm. While the mission had succeeded in destroying the Krillian scout ship, the cost weighed heavily on everyone's minds. Emily Dawson's sacrifice haunted Jake Miller most of all. He sat alone in a dimly lit corner of the bunker, staring at the floor as memories of her final moments replayed in his mind. The laughter they once shared, the quiet moments when she talked about her dreams for the future, all of it felt impossibly distant now. Her absence left a void that no amount of victory could fill. Above ground, news of the raid spread quickly. Reports of the destroyed scout ship gave humanity a much-needed morale boost. For the first time since the Krillians' arrival, people dared to believe that the invaders weren't invincible. Social media buzzed with stories of bravery, and even skeptics began to rally behind the resistance. Yet, beneath the surface, cracks were starting to show. Supplies were dwindling faster than expected, and tensions between factions within the resistance threatened to boil over. Some argued that risky operations like the Siberian raid weren't worth the losses, while others insisted that bold actions were necessary to keep the enemy off balance. In the command center, Alex Carter and Maria Lopes pored over data collected during the mission. Fragments of alien technology salvaged from the wreckage provided new insights into Krillian systems. "Their regenerative abilities are tied to these nodes," Maria explained, holding up a small glowing shard. "If we can find a way to disrupt them, we might disable their healing completely." Alex nodded, scribbling notes furiously. Every piece of information brought them closer to understanding their enemy, but also underscored just how advanced the Krillians truly were. Amid the chaos, whispers of betrayal began to circulate. A mole within the resistance had leaked classified details about the raid to the Krillians, leading to an ambush during a supply run shortly after the mission. Dozens of volunteers were captured or killed, and vital resources were lost. The attack hit hard, both physically and emotionally. Trust, already fragile, began to erode further. Suspicion spread like wildfire, turning allies against one another. Accusations flew in every direction, and paranoia gripped the bunker. Jake found himself caught in the middle of the turmoil. His grief over Emily's death mingled with anger and frustration, leaving him dangerously close to breaking point. During one heated argument, he slammed his fist on a table, shouting, "We're tearing ourselves apart, while the real enemy is still out there." General Sam Brooks intervened, his voice cutting through the noise. "Enough," he barked. "We don't have time for this. If we want to survive, we need to focus." Reluctantly, the team regrouped, setting aside their differences for the greater good. Alex reminded everyone of what they stood to lose if they gave in to infighting. "Emily didn't give her life so we could fall apart," he said quietly. "She believed in us, in what we're fighting for. Let's honor that." His words struck a nerve, reigniting a flicker of unity among the group. As plans for the next mission took shape, Jake struggled to find purpose again. He spent hours poring over maps and schematics, determined to channel his pain into action. One evening, as he worked late into the night, Maria approached him. "I know you're hurting," she said gently. As the resistance regrouped, Alex Carter and Maria Lopes turned their attention to a new lead. Rumors had surfaced about another alien race, the Zentari, who had once been subjugated by the Krillians. If true, this could be humanity's best chance at gaining allies in the fight against their shared enemy. The idea was risky. Reaching out to an unknown species carried no guarantees of trust or cooperation. But with supplies dwindling and morale hanging by a thread, it was a gamble worth taking. Alex spent long nights researching everything he could find about the Zentari, Fragments of intercepted Krillian communications hinted at a brutal history of conquest and oppression. The Zentari were described as resourceful and resilient, qualities that resonated deeply with Alex. "If anyone understands what we're going through, it's them," he told Maria during one of their late-night brainstorming sessions. She agreed, though her expression remained cautious. "We need to tread carefully," she warned. "They might see us as just another threat." With General Sam Brooks' approval, Alex and Maria devised a plan to establish contact. Using modified transmitters salvaged from the Siberian raid, they sent coded messages into deep space, embedding Earth's coordinates alongside a plea for help. Days passed without response, and doubts began to creep in. Had their message reached its intended audience, or had it fallen into the wrong hands? Then, on the 5th day, something remarkable happened. A faint signal returned, carrying a series of symbols unfamiliar yet deliberate. Alex and Maria worked tirelessly to decode it, their excitement growing with each breakthrough. Finally, they pieced together a reply. "Who are you, and why do you seek us?" Heart racing, Alex crafted a careful response. He explained humanity's plight, emphasizing their desire not only for survival, but also for justice. The Zentari replied cautiously, asking for proof of their intentions. After several exchanges, the two sides agreed to meet under strict conditions. A neutral location, an uninhabited moon orbiting a distant planet, was chosen as the site of their rendezvous. The journey to the meeting point was tense. Jake Miller led a small escort team aboard a retrofitted spacecraft, while Alex and Maria accompanied Ambassador Lyra, the Zentari representative. When the Zentari ship emerged from the darkness of space, it was unlike anything humanity had ever seen. Sleek and angular, its surface shimmered with iridescent hues, reflecting light in mesmerizing patterns. As the airlock opened, Ambassador Lyra stepped forward, her form humanoid yet distinctly alien, with luminous markings tracing her skin. Negotiations began cautiously. Lyra spoke through a translator device, her tone measured but firm. She recounted the horrors inflicted upon her people by the Krillians, from enslavement to ecological devastation. Her words painted a grim picture, yet there was a glimmer of hope beneath the pain. "Your struggle mirrors ours," she said. "Together, we may stand a chance." In exchange for intelligence about Krillian weaknesses, the Zentari requested Earth's promise to aid in liberating their homeworld after the war. Alex hesitated briefly before nodding. "You have our word," he assured her. With that, Lyra provided critical data, schematics of Krillian ships, vulnerabilities in their biomechanical systems, and strategies for exploiting their rigid protocols. Returning to Earth, Alex and Maria briefed the team on their findings. The alliance with the Zentari reinvigorated the resistance, injecting fresh energy into their efforts. For the first time since the invasion, humanity felt less alone. Yet, as Jake reviewed the intel, he couldn't shake a lingering sense of unease. Trusting strangers, even those with a common enemy, was always a risk. Still, he reminded himself of Emily's belief in unity. "If we're going to win this," he muttered to himself, "we'll need all the help we can get." With renewed determination, the team prepared for the next phase of the war. The road ahead would be perilous, but the fragile bond forged with the Zentari offered a sliver of hope. Humanity wasn't just fighting for survival anymore. They were fighting for allies, for justice, and for a future where freedom wasn't a privilege granted by conquerors. The alliance with the Zentari brought a wave of cautious optimism to the resistance, but it wasn't long before disaster struck. Just as plans for a coordinated assault were taking shape, betrayal came from within. A mole had been feeding classified information to the Krillians, and their retaliation was swift and devastating. During a routine supply run in the Australian outback, a convoy of trucks carrying food, medical supplies, and ammunition was ambushed. Krillian forces descended without warning, their weapons cutting through defenses like paper. The attack was brutal and efficient. Volunteers scrambled to fight back, but they were outnumbered and outgunned. Many tried to flee, only to be hunted down by biomechanical soldiers who showed no mercy. By the time reinforcements arrived, the damage was done. Trucks lay in smoldering ruins, their cargo destroyed or confiscated. Dozens of lives were lost, including key members of the resistance whose skills and knowledge could never be replaced. Among them was Sarah Bennett, a medic who had saved countless lives during previous missions. Her death hit the team hard, leaving an ache that words couldn't fill. Back at the bunker, tensions flared as accusations flew. Everyone was a suspect. Friends turned on friends. Leaders questioned their own judgment. Jake Miller paced the room, his fists clenched so tightly his knuckles turned white. "We trusted each other," he growled, his voice trembling with anger. "And this is what happens. How could someone do this?" Alex Carter and Maria Lopes worked tirelessly to trace the leak, combing through communications logs and cross-referencing data. It didn't take long to uncover the truth. One of their own, a technician named Ryan Cole, had been secretly transmitting intel to the Krillians. When confronted, Ryan didn't deny it. "They promised me safety," he stammered, his face pale with fear. "They said if I helped them, they'd let me live when they took over." General Sam Brooks wasted no time ordering Ryan's arrest, but the damage was already done. Trust, fragile even before the betrayal, shattered completely. Morale plummeted, and arguments erupted over whether risky operations should continue. Some believed every mission put more lives at risk unnecessarily. Others argued that doing nothing meant certain defeat. The weight of leadership rested heavily on Alex's shoulders as he tried to hold the fractured group together. Amid the chaos, Jake retreated into himself. Emily's loss still haunted him, and now the deaths of so many others, including Sarah, felt like a personal failure. He stopped attending meetings, isolating himself in a corner of the bunker where he spent hours cleaning and repairing weapons. Each click of a disassembled rifle echoed his frustration and guilt. One evening, Alex found him there, sitting alone in the dim light. "You can't shut everyone out," Alex said softly, placing a hand on Jake's shoulder. "Emily wouldn't want you to give up." Jake looked up, his eyes bloodshot and hollow. "I don't know how to keep going," he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "Every time we try, people die. What's the point?" Alex sat beside him, letting the silence stretch between them for a moment. "The point is that we're still here," he said finally. "We've lost good people, too many, but we haven't lost everything. Not yet. And as long as we're breathing, we owe it to them to keep fighting." Maria joined them later, bringing updates from the Centauri. Ambassador Lyra had sent additional intelligence, along with a message of solidarity. "Your losses are our losses," she wrote. "Together, we will honor their sacrifices." Her words reminded the team why they had formed the alliance in the first place, not just for survival, but for justice. Slowly, the resistance began to regroup. Jake returned to training recruits, channeling his grief into preparing others for battle. Alex and Maria refined their strategies, incorporating new insights from the Centauri. Though scars remained, both visible and invisible, the team resolved to move forward. Betrayal had nearly torn them apart, but it also taught them something vital. Humanity's strength lay not in perfection, but in resilience. And resilience, they realized, was a weapon the Krillians could never understand. With renewed determination, Alex Carter and Maria Lopes devised a bold plan to strike at the heart of the Krillian forces. Using intelligence provided by the Centauri, they identified the enemy's flagship as the central hub for all operations in Earth's orbit. If they could infiltrate the massive vessel and disable its primary command node, it would cripple the Krillians' ability to coordinate their attacks. It was a high-risk mission, but one that could turn the tide of the war. The operation required splitting into two teams. One group, led by Emily Dawson's husband, Jake Miller, would board the flagship undetected and plant explosives on the command node. The other team, commanded by General Sam Brooks, would create a diversion on the surface to draw Krillian attention away from the ship. Timing was critical. If either team failed, the entire mission would collapse. Preparations moved quickly. Jake handpicked a small, elite squad of volunteers for the boarding party, each member chosen for their skills and bravery. Among them were Mark Rivera, a former pilot who knew his way around spacecraft, and Rachel Kim, an engineer capable of bypassing even the most advanced alien technology. Alex and Maria equipped the team with modified EMP devices, stealth suits designed to mask heat signatures, and compact explosives powerful enough to destroy the command node. As the launch date approached, nerves ran high. Jake spent hours reviewing every detail of the plan, drilling his team until they could execute their roles in their sleep. "We only get one shot at this," he reminded them during a final briefing. "Stick to the plan, stay focused, and trust each other." On the night of the mission, the air was thick with tension. The diversion team launched first, deploying decoy drones and setting off controlled explosions near a Krillian landing site in South America. The noise and chaos worked perfectly, drawing waves of biomechanical soldiers to the area. Meanwhile, Jake's team boarded a cloaked shuttle and headed for the flagship, its silhouette looming ominously against the stars. Getting aboard wasn't easy. The shuttle had to navigate through layers of defensive drones and energy shields, relying on precise calculations and split-second maneuvers. Once inside the hangar bay, the team moved swiftly, sticking to shadows and avoiding patrols. The interior of the flagship was a labyrinth of glowing corridors and humming machinery, every step fraught with danger. Rachel took the lead when they reached a security checkpoint, her fingers flying over a control panel as she hacked into the system. Alarms blared briefly before she silenced them, buying the team precious seconds. "Let's move," she whispered urgently, motioning for the others to follow. They reached the command node, a towering structure pulsating with energy. At last, Mark set up the explosives while Jake kept watch, his weapon trained on the entrance. Suddenly, the sound of heavy footsteps echoed down the corridor. Krillian guards appeared, their weapons raised. A fierce firefight erupted, forcing the team to take cover behind crates and consoles. "Hurry up," Jake shouted over the din. Mark finished arming the device and nodded. "We're good. Let's go." Retreating through the maze-like ship was just as perilous as entering it. The Krillians pursued relentlessly, their regenerative abilities making them relentless foes. At one point, Rachel was grazed by an energy blast, but she gritted her teeth and kept moving. "I'm fine," she insisted when Jake offered to help. "Just don't slow down." Finally, they reached the shuttle and blasted off, leaving the flagship behind. As they cleared the atmosphere, Jake pressed the detonator. A blinding flash lit up the void as the command node exploded, sending shockwaves rippling through the vessel. On the surface, General Brooks reported that the Krillians had begun retreating, their coordination faltering without the flagship's guidance. Back at the bunker, cheers erupted as news of the victory spread. For the first time since the invasion began, hope seemed within reach. But Jake sat quietly, staring at the detonator in his hands. He thought of Emily, Sarah, and all the others who had given their lives for this moment. Their sacrifices weighed heavily, but so did the knowledge that the fight was far from over. Still, for now, humanity had proven it could stand toe-to-toe with gods. And win. The destruction of the Krillian flagship sent shockwaves through their fleet, both literally and figuratively. Without its central command node, the invaders' coordination crumbled. Ships drifted aimlessly in orbit, their once precise formations breaking apart. On Earth's surface, General Sam Brooks wasted no time capitalizing on the chaos. He ordered a full-scale counteroffensive, deploying every available soldier, vehicle, and weapon to push the Krillians back into space. The battle that followed was fierce and unrelenting. Humanity's forces struck from all angles, using guerrilla tactics and EMP devices to disable enemy ships and ground units. The Zentari joined the fight as well, launching coordinated attacks from their own vessels to keep the disoriented Krillians pinned down. For the first time since the invasion began, The tide turned decisively in humanity's favor. But victory came at a cost. Entire cities lay in ruins, reduced to rubble by earlier Kryllian bombardments. Millions had been displaced, their homes lost to fire and destruction. Even as the resistance celebrated their hard-won success, the scars of war were impossible to ignore. Jake Miller walked through what remained of downtown Chicago, his boots crunching over broken glass and debris. Buildings stood like skeletal remains, their windows shattered and walls blackened by smoke. The air smelled of ash and despair. Alex Carter and Maria Lopes worked tirelessly to assess the damage, traveling to affected areas to gather data and provide aid where they could. They saw families huddled together in makeshift shelters, children crying for parents who would never return. "This isn't just about winning anymore," Maria said one evening, her voice heavy with emotion. "It's about rebuilding, about making sure none of this happens again." Despite the devastation, small acts of hope began to emerge. In Los Angeles, volunteers cleared streets and salvaged materials to construct temporary housing. In London, musicians held impromptu concerts in bombed-out squares, their melodies lifting spirits even amid the wreckage. And in New York City, a group of engineers repaired an old radio tower to broadcast messages of resilience. "We are still here. We will rebuild." Jake found solace in mentoring young recruits, teaching them how to fight not out of anger but out of purpose. "War changes you," he told them during training sessions, "but it doesn't have to break you. Remember why we're doing this, for those we've lost, and for those who'll come after us." Though memories of Emily and Sarah weighed heavily on him, he refused to let grief consume him entirely. Instead, he channeled it into preparing the next generation of defenders. As weeks passed, the Kryllians retreated further into space, abandoning their foothold on Earth. Their massive ships vanished beyond the atmosphere, leaving behind only silence and questions. Had they truly given up, or were they regrouping for another assault? Alex and Maria continued analyzing intercepted signals, searching for answers. So far, there was no sign of immediate danger, but neither dared to relax. One evening, Alex climbed to the roof of the bunker to gaze at the stars. The sky looked peaceful now, free of alien vessels blotting out the constellations. Yet he couldn't shake the feeling that humanity's struggles were far from over. Beside him, Maria joined in quiet contemplation. "Do you think we'll ever explore the stars ourselves?" she asked softly. "I don't know," Alex replied. "But if we do, I hope it's because we've learned something from all this, not just how to survive, but how to protect what matters." For now, Earth was safe, but as long as threats lurked among the stars, humanity knew it couldn't afford to forget the lessons of this war. Courage, unity, and sacrifice had saved them once. They might need those same qualities again someday. And when that day came, they vowed to be ready. Profile: Quen 2.5 Max, 8:54 a.m. With the Kryllians driven from Earth's orbit, humanity entered a fragile period of recovery. The scars of war were everywhere: shattered cities, empty homes, and countless lives forever changed. Yet, amidst the rubble, there was also a sense of renewal. People came together to rebuild, pooling resources and sharing skills to create something stronger than what had been lost. In New Orleans, volunteers restored a historic jazz club, its music once again filling the air with life. In Tokyo, engineers constructed solar-powered shelters for displaced families, their designs inspired by lessons learned during the conflict. Slowly but surely, Earth began to heal. The alliance with the Centauri proved invaluable in this effort. Together, humans and aliens worked side by side to reclaim territories devastated by the invasion. Ambassador Lyra oversaw joint missions to liberate the Centauri homeworld, fulfilling Earth's promise to aid their allies. When the operation succeeded, celebrations erupted across both species' worlds. For the first time in centuries, the Centauri were free, their planet slowly recovering from decades of exploitation under Kryllian rule. "You have given us more than freedom," Lyra told Alex Carter during a ceremony marking the victory. "You have shown us that unity can overcome even the darkest times." Back on Earth, technological advancements accelerated thanks to access to alien knowledge. Scientists reverse-engineered Krillian tech, developing breakthroughs in medicine, energy, and space exploration. Diseases once thought incurable became treatable. Clean energy sources replaced outdated systems, and humanity took its first steps toward becoming an interstellar civilization. Schools introduced programs focused on science and diplomacy, preparing future generations for a world where Earth was no longer alone in the universe. Jake Miller found purpose in mentoring young defenders, training them not just to fight, but to think critically about the responsibilities of power. He often visited Emily's grave, leaving flowers and sharing stories of her impact on the resistance. Though grief still lingered, he felt a quiet peace knowing she would be proud of how far they'd come. "We did it, Em," he whispered one evening, staring at the sunset. "Not without cost, but we made it through." Alex Carter spent his days studying the stars, now with a renewed sense of wonder. The observatory in New Mexico reopened, its telescopes scanning the cosmos for signs of other civilizations. Maria Lopes joined him frequently, their partnership stronger than ever. "Do you think we'll meet others like the Zentari?" she asked one night as they reviewed data. "Or ones like the Krillians?" "Maybe both," Alex replied thoughtfully. "But I believe we're ready for whatever comes next. We've proven we can adapt, survive, and most importantly, unite when it matters." As years passed, Earth transformed into a beacon of resilience and progress. Memorials were built to honor those who had fallen in the war, their names etched into stone as reminders of the sacrifices made for freedom. Jake eventually retired from active duty, spending his days teaching history to children who had only heard tales of the invasion. His stories weren't just about battles won or enemies defeated. They were about courage, compassion, and the unbreakable spirit of humanity. One clear night, Alex stood outside the observatory, gazing at the endless expanse above. A shooting star streaked across the sky, its light brief but brilliant. It reminded him of everything humanity had endured: the pain, the loss, the triumphs, and everything yet to come. Somewhere out there, among the countless stars, lay answers to questions humanity had barely begun to ask. And though the journey ahead would be uncertain, Alex knew one thing for sure: no matter what challenges awaited, humanity's resilience would shine brighter than any threat. Earth wasn't just surviving anymore, it was thriving. And as long as people remembered the lessons of the past, they would continue to reach for the stars, proving that even in the face of overwhelming odds, hope could lead the way forward.